And we are back once again.
It's us, the horror guys.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we're 183 episodes into it.
Dig it.
Running a couple weeks behind as usual.
I blame you.
I blame you.
And we're here to talk about some horror movies this week, aren't we?
As always, we got 4 movies and a short. What do we got?
Well, the first one is actually a miniseries. They've
two-parter.
They've mashed it together into one movie now. That was Salem's Lot from 1979.
The original. I know there was a remake in the late 90s, and
there's going to be one due out next year.
I think they've already produced it. It's just a matter of, releasing.
An indie film called Guilt. That's a brand new one from this year.
Were we guilty for watching it?
We were.
Yes, we were.
We felt very guilty. And some scariness from 1957, The Monolith Monsters.
Not.
And Halloween 2018.
Maybe the final remake of Halloween? The final reboot or whatever you want. It's not really even either, is it?
No, because there's Halloween Ends, and then there's Halloween... no, I said that backwards. Halloween Kills. Which one is the one that's out now?
Halloween Kills is already still out.
Right.
Halloween Ends is coming up in a couple
soon.
months.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that'll be the last one.
Of all the major
Halloween
horror...
Ends, with a title like that, it's got to be the last one ever, right?
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
No more reboots, no more ever.
Yeah. I think of all the horror franchises, Halloween may be the most complicated with the timelines.
Yes, the way they've rebooted and remade and yeah.
There have been sequels to the original after reboots.
And we're going to talk about this one and why it's weird in that timeline too. Well, but first...
Yeah, as always, Horror Guys is brought to you by the Horror Guys Guidebooks. Go to horrorguys.com/books. Look through our list. We've got books on Vincent Price. We've got books on silent films. We've got books on the shock theater and the Son of Shock. We've got short fiction, Tales to Make You Shiver. 2 books of those and counting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, of course, every month we put out a monthly magazine called Horror Bulletin Monthly, which is available on the website, horrorguys.com/monthly, or go to horrorbulletin.com and sign up for our weekly email newsletter. And, believe it or not, we got free stuff this week.
We do?
We got a giveaway.
Oh, I love giveaways.
Orphan, First Kill. Now playing in theaters, and we've got giveaway copies of that. We haven't seen the original or the remake yet, but it's coming up.
I was going to say, because it's out there, but we haven't seen them. Yeah, we have not. Yeah.
We have not. We're going to in a future episode about the time we give those away.
That's right.
So, check out the movie Orphan if you want, and if you want to get a free copy of Orphan First Kill, which I'm assuming is a prequel. I'm not sure. Haven't seen either one yet.
Yeah, and the trouble is I get them mixed up too, because there's one out there called The Orphanage, and isn't there another one that's out there that's a Spanish film? And I always mix up the 4 of them, the 3 of them, and they're also I'm looking forward to seeing The Orphanage.
He's got the little girl with black
Orphanage.
ponytails on the front. It's I think it's just called Orphan, not the
evil little girl.
Yeah. Anyway, if you would like a free copy of Orphan First Kill, send an email to email@horrorguys.com. Send your name and your... Well, really, all we need is your email.
Yeah.
We'll send you a promo code
Some way
for
to get it to you. Yeah.
All right. So, we'll be giving that away in a week or 2, depending on what episode... I know next episode we got other stuff coming out. Probably the episode after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, are we ready for this week's stuff?
I'm ready.
What did we watch first?
Salem's Lot from 1979, which was directed by Tobe Hooper, who's done a lot of good work. Written by Stephen King, and Paul Monash was in on the writing of the screenplay. Stars David Soul, James Mason, and Lance Kerwin. Runtime is a whopping 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Probably better than the miniseries with like 4 or 5 hours of commercials.
Yes, much better. I remember seeing it when it came out, actually, on live TV with commercials. How quaint!
I don't remember seeing it at the time.
I used to watch commercial television.
How terrifying in itself. What did Stephen King think of this one?
He gave it a thumbs up. He liked it.
I think he likes all his movies originally, but later on he turns against a lot of them.
He does, yeah. He has some.
That's a great movie.
He has had some
Oh
bad
man, that
words.
was awful.
Well, I think initially, wants to make sure that people go see it and, spend the money on it. Yeah. And then later he can say, oh, that was kind of stinky.
This is usually one of the more highly regarded King adaptations, and I'm not sure why they've remade it twice. Probably just because it's that good of a story.
Yeah, it is.
Well, spoiler-free, what happens?
Well, this was originally aired as a miniseries, as I mentioned, and they do a nice job keeping it scary and interesting while still tame enough for television. This was 1979 primetime TV, so they couldn't be too raunchy with it, but it's surprisingly scary and tense and sexy, and the direction, acting, script, and special effects are all very good. It's long, but it's well worth the watch.
Yeah, and
I thought it held up well.
It's a one part thing now. It's not a miniseries anymore, and it is available on Shudder. Although I've seen it for DVDs and probably Blu-ray as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we start in Zimico, Mexico, where Mark Petrie and Ben Mears fill vials with holy water. They found us again, Ben says, as one of their bottles starts to glow. It's like Frodo's knife. When vampires approach,
when
it
vampires
glows.
are near.
And then credits roll. In Salem's Lot, Maine, 2 years previously, Ben Mears looks at a creepy old house. And this is the same guy we just saw being a vampire hunter 2 years later.
Mm-hmm. So we find out what led to them being in that state of things.
An older man, Richard Straker, comes out. He's well-dressed and classy-looking, and he just bought the house. Straker gets in his car and drives off, giving Ben a funny look. Why is this guy hanging outside the front of my house staring at me?
Yeah, and staring at the house. What's up?
Yeah. Later, we see Straker unpacking lots of stuff from boxes. He's moving his things into a new antique store called Barlow and Straker. Ben goes to the realtor to talk about the Marston house, but it's already been sold.
And he wasn't really interested in buying it. He was just feeling out, seeing if he could find out who this guy was.
I think he might have been interested in buying it.
No,
he's got a connection to this house.
That's not the impression I got.
Well,
I think it was just a fact-finding thing.
Well, Ben gets a room at the boarding house, and we learn that he's a writer because he's got a big old clicky typewriter in his room. a local from the town who has left and now come back. He meets an art teacher, Susan Norton, and she has one of his books. Of course, she remembers him from back when he lived there. That night, he stares out the window at the old Marston house.
Because, his boarding house room just happens to have a view of the old Marston house up on the hill.
Constable Gillespie tells Weasel Phillips, the town drunk, to keep an eye on the newcomer. Ben Mears is the newcomer, of course. Ben then meets Susan's parents, Bill and Ann, and Straker arranges for Crockett, the realtor, to send a truck to pick up a box at the docks tonight. Crockett keeps asking to meet Mr. Barlow, and Straker keeps saying, soon.
Soon, yes.
No Barlow for you. Cully Sawyer goes to the cemetery and asks the caretaker there, Mike Ryerson, to gather a few strong men for a job at the docks tonight. He's the one going to go pick up the things for Straker.
Mm-hmm.
Cully is married to Bonnie, who is having an affair with Larry Crockett, the realtor. That night, someone or something kills Ryerson's dog. Ben introduces himself to Jason Burke, an old teacher at school. They talk about Mark Petrie, a young writer still in Jason's class. They also talk about the Marston house and Hubie Marston, who used to live there. Ben went into the Marston house once, and he imagined seeing old Hubie still hanging there, a ghost. Ben thinks the house is inherently evil. Bad things have always happened there. An evil house attracts evil men.
And there's business going on at the house again.
There is.
Must be evil.
Ryerson and Ned Tebbers pick up the Barlow box at the docks while Cully spies on his cheating wife back home. The box in the truck is unnaturally cold to the touch, which is not really explained. Are vampires just cold?
I think this one is.
All right. Well, he's blue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ted wants to open the crate, but Mike isn't interested. He just wants to do the job. They get spooked and run off, throwing the padlocks on the ground and driving away.
So I guess Straker's plan was keeping Barlow under control for a little longer.
Must have been.
That was the
why
objective
else
of this.
Him in there? Yeah.
And he doesn't get locked up. The box doesn't get padlocked and stuff, so he busts out before Straker was really, ready to receive him as a guest.
Well, we know Barlow wasn't the one that killed the guy's dog.
No, it was Straker.
Okay.
And Straker kills that kid, too. That first kid.
Yeah. We're getting to that one. Uh-huh. Ralphie and Danny, two brothers from Mark's school, take a shortcut home, and something gets Ralphie. Danny makes it home, but he's in shock. Straker gets home to find the house is not locked up, which is concerning. He goes downstairs to find the big crate has been destroyed. broken outwards.
No, that's wrong. It would be Barlow that killed the kid.
I think so.
Straker, that's what Straker carries in, wrapped in the packaging. He's got the dog there as a first meal for Barlow.
I thought that was the kid in the package.
No, I don't think so. No.
No. He found the dead dog's body. He didn't take the dog with him.
Okay.
The dog was just laying there in the cemetery. That the caretaker finds it later.
Okay.
This was the kid.
Okay.
Straker carries it. Okay, yep. And Cully catches Bonnie and Crockett in the act and stomps in with a gun. It's a bluff. Crockett runs outside, but something completely unexpected gets him. That was probably Barlow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ben, of course, we don't see any of these murders because it's 1979 TV.
Mm-hmm.
Ben and Susan are making out down at the lake, and they hear a car. They walk over and find Crockett sitting in his car in his underwear, dead. They call the constable and make a report. Danny dreams that his dead brother comes to his window to visit tonight. He opens the window, and it's not a dream.
Uh-oh.
The constable pays a visit to Mr. Straker after Ben casts some aspersions. The constable checks out Ben Mears as well as Straker and Barlow. Dr. Norton tells Ben that Crockett died of a heart attack, and Danny has pernicious anemia.
What? He's losing blood?
That night, Danny lets his brother inside again, and this time, Danny doesn't survive the experience. Danny's funeral is held at the cemetery, and later on, Mike starts to fill in the grave with dirt. He stops and stares at the coffin a long time, almost hypnotically, before he jumps in and opens it. Danny then sits up and bites him. Oh my.
It's spreading.
Mark and his father talk about interest in monsters and magic tricks. Ben and Jason have dinner, but they are interrupted by Mike, who is acting very strangely. He has bite marks on his neck, and Mark gets a nocturnal visit from Danny, but Mark knows about monsters and won't let him in. Jason takes Mike home with him for the night to keep an eye on him. Jason wakes up with nightmares and calls Ben to bring over a crucifix and a rosary. Mike is dead, and there's a single drop of blood on his neck. There are no marks on his neck now. This is after Ben gets there. Jason tells Ben all his suspicions, but there's just so much they can do. They do tell Dr. Norton about it, but of course he's not a believer. He's a science doc. He's a doctor.
But there is weirdness to these deaths. The lack of blood and so forth.
Unexplained phenomena.
Yeah.
Well, it's opening day at Barlow and Straker Antique Shop. Ben talks to Straker about the house. He's writing about it, and he'd like to visit. Out of nowhere, Ned Tebbets attacks Ben for dating Susan. Remember, this is a miniseries. There's a lot of drama and soap opera-ishness here. Alone for the night, Jason hears someone upstairs. It's Mike, back from the dead. Jason revokes his invitation, and Mike falls out the window. Jason then has a heart attack and dies. Over at the police station, Ned Tebbets gets a visit from Mr. Barlow in his jail cell. Susan tells... This is long, isn't it?
It is.
It's like a 3-hour movie.
It's like a miniseries.
Susan tells Ben that people are dying all over town. Ben tells her and her father about the vampires, and they believe him now. Mark talks to the local priest, who mostly believes his story after hearing similar things from Ben and Susan. Barlow and Straker break in and kill Mark's parents. The priest pulls out his cross, but it doesn't help. It's a trade. Barlow wants the priest.
That's a battle of faiths.
Yeah.
And this priest is kind of wussy.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, you can see how this fight's going to end up.
Ben and Dr. Norton go to the morgue to investigate the latest victim, and Ben makes a cross out of taped-up popsicle sticks. Think that'll work?
It did. He blessed it, and it worked just fine.
He burns the new vampire with the cross, and she simply vanishes.
Yeah, burned the cross emblem right into her forehead, which, I guess it was just
It's hard to avoid
an
if there's a
overload
scar on your forehead.
Yeah, and it just kept burning her until she, poof, yeah.
The next morning, the constable and the deputy are both sick. Probably that pernicious anemia again.
Yes.
People all over town are sick today. For some reason, Susan goes to the Marston house and runs into Mark there. The two of them soon wind up in Barlow's basement. They go upstairs, and it's not much better there. Straker catches them easily. He ties up Mark and takes Susan to see Barlow. Mark is good at escape tricks and works himself free, because his hobby is monsters and magic.
That's right.
Ben goes to see the constable who is planning on leaving town. He's like the only smart one in the series. He's adding, I'm done. I'm out of here.
Yeah, noping right out of there.
The constable gives Ben his gun, and Ben and Dr. Norton grab some holy water and head for the old haunted house. They run into Mark, and Straker picks up Norton and impales him on some deer antlers. Oops.
Yeah.
Ben shoots Straker 6 times before he falls down dead.
Yeah, he was tough.
Ben and Mark go down to the basement and eventually find Barlow's coffin. There are other bodies laying around in various states of half-life. They try to figure out how to open the coffin as the sun goes down. They open it up, and Barlow's laying there asleep, and of course he wakes up at the last second. He tries to fight back as Ben drives a stake into his heart, but it's too little too late for him. The 2 guys then set the house on fire, not even bothering to look for Susan, who was taken prison like an hour before.
Mm-hmm. I guess they assume that, yeah.
Well, we return to Zimico, Mexico 2 years later, where the other vampires are still chasing Ben and Mark, looking for revenge. The latest vampire turns out to be Susan. She says she just wants a kiss, but Ben stabs her anyway. The end.
The end. All in all, it was really good.
It's long. It was obviously originally a miniseries, and the format gives the movie plenty of time for character development and backstory. Parts of it feel a lot like a soap opera, but there's always something horrible going on in the background, so it doesn't get boring.
No, not at all.
The further the story progresses, the more it focuses on the vampires. Yeah, the thing with the whole realtor and the romance, that's very soap opera-y.
Kinda.
It kind of just all goes away pretty
But it
quick.
all made sense for the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, of course, we watched Midnight Mass a few weeks ago, and it's kind of hard not to see the similarities in the story here. They have several very interesting parallels. Vampires appearing in small towns, lots of family and local drama, and a fear of outsiders at the center of it all. They even burn the whole town at the end of both movies.
Yeah, they do.
Barlow's makeup here is very good. He's essentially a colorized version of Nosferatu. The other vampires all look good. They still sort of look like human, though, with huge fangs and glowing eyes. Very nice, very creepy, and very believable.
Probably because Barlow's so old. If the other fresh vampires got that old, they'd probably start shriveling up and looking like him, too.
You kind of got to wonder about those Nosferatu types. Are they just really, really old? Are they like a different kind of vampire? Are they more demon?
Well,
you just never really know.
Well, it depends on the show or the movie. Like in that series Kindred, the Embraced, they had different clans of vampires. One was the Nosferatu clan, and they all kind of looked like that. And but
then you got like What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows,
old.
where he was thousands of years old. Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, so just depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you get the ones like Buffy the Vampire Slayer that are more demon than typical vampire.
Yeah.
They're special.
Yes.
So many types. We need to pick one vampire and go with it.
Makes it more interesting that way.
Did we watch an indie film this week?
We did. We watched Guilt.
Written and directed by William Chaffin, stars Anna Hoots, Jared Noble, Liz Fletcher, an hour and 15 minutes. If you haven't seen this one, there's a trailer in the show notes. And this is, of course, an indie film. It's a new film, so we're not going to spoil it to death for you.
No, not much.
We're going to get you the setting here and go there. Completely spoiler-free. It's a low-budget-looking film. It's an indie, you can tell.
Yeah.
But the acting is decent, the story is interesting, and it moves quickly. It is in the are they crazy or aren't they trope, but they pull it off pretty well.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so again, we're not going to kill the whole thing for you, but what happens?
Well, Elizabeth unloads her car. She's returning home after a long trip. And at first she can't find her parents, but she does see a creepy, pasty-faced woman with long hair and a shroud. And she then kills her parents. What? Oh, no, she wakes up. It was just a nightmare. And she goes down to see her parents, who are alive and perfectly normal. And we see in various ways that Elizabeth has some pretty serious OCD or something
She
going
arranges
on.
things on the table and, the typical movie signs.
Yeah. Well, the detective calls and says that Elizabeth's friend Victoria committed suicide. But Elizabeth swears she wouldn't have done that.
This was sometime in the distant past. We did it not in the movie.
Yeah. She blames Kyle, Victoria's boyfriend, and she gives the same story to her psychiatrist, Dr. Colby, but she lies about having the dreams. no, all better. Yeah, nothing going on here. And Elizabeth goes to a party, and I've lost my place, and admits to her friend that she's gone off her meds, which, is this, making her crazier, or is this helping her because the meds are messing with her? We don't know yet. But she feels good about it, and she runs into Paul, an old boyfriend. Kyle is there too, and they have a confrontation. He thinks that maybe Elizabeth murdered Victoria. And maybe, not maybe, but later Elizabeth and the woman in the shroud kill Kyle. Was that a nightmare, or was it real? And I think we should leave it there.
No, keep going.
You think a little more?
We don't have the whole thing here. Just read the whole thing.
Oh, because Matt Graveman, a private investigator, talks to Detective Mattingly about Kyle's apparent suicide, which did really happen. Wasn't just a dream. He explains that he used to be a priest, and there may be something supernatural about this case. Well, Elizabeth says the shrouded figure in her house sees it again, chases it out into the woods, and she watches the figure kill Stacy. And then she wakes up. Another nightmare? Well, her mother wonders about Elizabeth's schizophrenia. She was diagnosed just after her sister Stacy died, and she admits that she's off her meds, but it's all good. Elizabeth thinks her parents made up her schizophrenia to blame her for Stacy's death. Elizabeth tells Detective Mattingly that she's off her meds, diagnosed with schizophrenia, and that she's seen 2 murders. And the detective, rather than treat her like a suspect, sends her to talk to the ex-priest, who believes that Elizabeth may be haunted by a demon. So is she crazy, or is she haunted? You'll have to watch to find out.
I don't know, but these are the dumbest cops I've ever seen.
Oh, that's to have a cop be presented with somebody in that state. She's not acting rationally. She's admitted, that she's been diagnosed with mental conditions. She's off her meds, and she's involved with the deaths of people. And I'll send you to see this occult guy.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it seems obvious early on that Elizabeth's schizophrenia is making her see things and murder people. But as the film progresses, more and more supernatural explanations are offered, and they start to make more sense.
Yeah, and then the cop is right, it turns out. But,
Is he?
Or are they? Yeah.
It's clearly a low-budget indie film, but it's got a good story and good pacing, which is something so many indie films get wrong. It doesn't get boring, and the suspense builds nicely. My biggest complaint about the film is that she witnessed several murders, clearly admits she's schizophrenic and off her meds, and the police completely ignore that and go with a supernatural answer anyway. Even if there was, maybe, a supernatural force behind all this, that's not going to be any detective's first assumption.
Right.
Well.
Yeah. For that to be their first assumption, that seemed like a bit of a stretch. But, yeah. It was all right.
All right.
You should all see it.
Yes. And then there's a short where that was on, I believe, Amazon Prime and maybe Tubi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is pretty high class for a indie film to make it to Amazon Prime.
Oh, I think a lot of them are starting to get there.
They're starting to, I guess, loosen up more. Amazon Prime is and accept a lot more indie films and low budget films, and not strictly just the big stuff. Which I think
they're
is really
shooting
cool
for quantity.
Yeah,
yeah. They're not going just for the big budget stuff. They just want
cool.
everything.
Well, it probably doesn't cost them a lot, and that way they can go for the quantity. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And then we watched a short film this week. What was it?
Tech Savvy, brand new this year.
Written and directed by Scott Vassey, stars Leah Walton, Ashlyn Jade Lopez, and Kendra Pepe. 8 minutes, 32 seconds, and of course this one's on YouTube. You can just go and watch it. There's a link in the show notes.
Can I tell them about it?
Tell us about it.
A mother and her children bicker over breakfast. They make a lot of Game of Thrones references, which was probably a hip thing to do in 2019.
Immediately, I wonder how old this video is. Nobody talks about Game of Thrones anymore. Well, maybe a little bit now that that new one has started.
Maybe they were trying to go retro, or just, that's what they went for.
Maybe it was just a couple years in the making, or had COVID release issues or something.
Yeah. Well, the mother talks to a friend over Skype, and they talk about Charlotte's ex-husband's new girlfriend. They decide that Charlotte needs to set up an online dating profile. So she gets ready and chooses a profile picture and photoshops out a mole. and then the mole on her real body vanishes. Well, this could lead to trouble, couldn't it? If you can edit the photos and edit reality? Where could this go?
Depends on how well you know Photoshop, I guess.
And how carefully you use it.
All right, well, I really hate Charlotte and her children. No one is that fake cheerful all the time. Still, it's a well-shot video and looks good, and the story goes just about exactly where you expect it to. Just remember, kids, always color in the lines.
It's very important, especially when you're dealing with the reality-altering Photoshop.
All right, and then...
It was good. It was fun. Worth seeing.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Then the one that we're not so sure is worth seeing.
Well, it's weird because
The Monolith Monsters from 1957.
Such good quality. 1957, and I think it's mentioned in here, what a time capsule it is of 1957 life and technology, and, just sharp and vivid and well-made, good actors.
But these may be the lamest monsters of all time.
It's rocks.
Now, we've done some monster movies before. It Came from Outer Space, and some of those old Corman movies with rubber puppets and stuff. None of them hold a candle to this. They're rocks.
They're literally rocks.
They're rocks.
And, it's a apocalyptic, situation, but there's no intelligence behind these creatures. They're not creatures. They're rocks.
We may be getting ahead of ourselves.
But anyway.
Okay, so The Monolith Monsters from 57, directed by John Sherwood, written by Norman Jolly, Robert Fresco, and Jack Arnold, stars Grant Williams, Lola Albright, and Les Tremaine. Hour and 17 minutes. Spoiler-free.
This one is heavily science fiction with horror elements, and like we said, there are no actual monsters, just rocks from space. But it is very well made, it manages to be entertaining, and it's a time capsule of, of the late 1950s, and just looks really good, but you keep thinking throughout it, like, oh, it's just rocks.
We both liked it, we both enjoyed it, but to call this horror is a major stretch.
It's probably pushing it, yeah. Apocalyptic science fiction.
It's the end of the world. People are scared. Bad things are happening.
And people get killed. Yeah, there's deaths and mayhem, but it's rocks.
Well, we get some narration about how meteors strike the Earth every day. Once in a while, some of them strike the Earth and make craters. And we watch one impact in a fiery explosion as credits roll. Well, Ben's car it's like everybody named Ben this week.
It's Ben week.
Well, Ben's car overheats in the desert, so he gets out to fix it. He finds some strange rocks on the ground and takes one with him, but drives on.
And for the rocks, I noticed they used obsidian.
Black shiny stone.
Which is a little unusual looking, so that was nice. Yeah. Carry on.
Well, for that Game of Thrones references, you mean that's dragon glass. Yes,
that's right.
Since now we're talking about Game of Thrones all the time. Like, why? Well, we see that when water from his radiator spills on the rocks under his vehicle, they release smoke. Ben goes to his office in town and takes the sample inside. He works for the Department of the Interior. Ooh, how exciting. Martin, the newspaperman, comes over and whines about how boring this town is. And he ain't wrong. That night, the rock gets wet, and this time Ben sees what happens. The rock grows.
Boy, does it ever.
Dave comes to work in the morning, and he's surprised to find the front door of the office is locked. When he goes inside, he's even more surprised to find rocks like the one Ben found all over the room, and Ben is quite dead. He's turned to stone.
He's a stiff, you might say.
Meanwhile, Dave's girlfriend Kathy takes her grade school class on a field trip out to the desert. We see the strange black rocks all over the area here, too. Little Ginny takes one of the rocks home, but her mother won't let her bring that filthy thing into the house. So Ginny washes it and then leaves it in a tub full of water.
Oops.
Yeah.
And bad things happen.
The doctor does an autopsy on Ben, and he's been fused into a solid mass. It's not really turned to stone, but may as well be. They talk about the strange rock, and Kathy mentions how many of them there were out in the desert. Dave thinks the rocks may have something to do with Ben's death. They drive out to Ginny's house and find the place has been destroyed completely. There are, however, hundreds of shiny rocks scattered about. Ginny is alive and in shock, but both her parents are turned to stone, just like Ben was. Dave and Kathy drive Ginny to Dr. Reynolds, while the police chief remains behind at Ginny's house. Dave analyzes the rocks and thinks they're entirely ordinary silicates, but in a strange composition he's never seen before. They are rocks.
Yes, they're minerals.
Oh, don't start. We did Game of Thrones. We don't need Breaking Bad.
Okay.
Martin doesn't even understand why that's important. Dr. Reynolds calls Dave and says that Ginny's hand is starting to turn to stone also. He's sending her to Dr. Hendricks, a specialist in Los Angeles. Dave takes a sample of the rock to his old geology professor, Dr. Flanders. The professor thinks the rock is a meteorite. Technically it wouldn't be. These rocks that they picked up at Ginny's place are expanded off the original rocks.
Copies of
They're copies. They didn't fall.
Right.
But anyway, Dave says no, there are hundreds of them. They soon figure out that the rocks suck the silicate out of people and the soil in order to multiply. There's some nonsense about silicon making human skin flexible, which is why the people seem to have turned to stone. The doctor decides to inject Ginny with a mixture of silicates.
Science.
Sorta.
Dave
and the professor go out to the desert to find the original meteor, and it doesn't take them long. That night they get a thunderstorm in the desert, and of course it rains.
That's some unfortunate timing.
They soon find rocks that are hundreds of feet tall, and they decide to evacuate the town. It's almost like an invasion.
Almost.
An invasion of rocks.
It's just a chemical reaction.
Back at the hospital, Ginny wakes up. The cure works. When Kathy tries to call Dave with the news, she can't get through on the phone because all the power in town is off now. But they figure out a way to relay communication through police car radios, and Joe Higgins rushes into town saying the rocks are headed this way fast. Hurry, the rocks are coming.
What? Rocks?
They're rocks.
Well, yeah, but it's a huge avalanche of them because they're multiplying so fast now.
They grow hundreds of feet tall, break over, and fall on things.
And there's so much moisture in the ground now.
Yeah.
But wait, there's a reservoir nearby. Uh-oh.
More people die. And the governor issues a state of warning. They use Ginny's cure to find a way to at least stop the impending stampede of stones. Turns out, all they need to do is put down salt to stop the progress of the stones.
Yeah, they give her an IV full of silicates and all these different chemicals and everything, and it turns out that the carrier in the IV, just salt water, was what stops the chemical reaction.
They decide to blow up the dam, which will make the salt flats into salt water, which should kill the monoliths. Or rather stop the chemical reaction that's causing them to expand out of control. After all, they are just rocks, not living creatures. Well, the governor's late to show up, so Dave orders that the dam be blown up right now, and they do it, flooding the valley just outside of town. Hey, the Monolith Monsters have been destroyed.
Yay! Happy ending.
All right, well, it's an entertaining mystery with some sci-fi elements here. It's not really an alien invasion, and calling them Monolith Monsters isn't really fair either. They're just rocks.
Have we said that?
Rocks that have a strange natural property, oh sure, but they're just rocks. They aren't evil or even intelligent. They're literally rocks.
So I can see, because of that, why this hasn't become a classic. Like some of
scary.
the other
They're
50s horror movies.
Yeah, the acting is fine. They take everything very seriously and work together to save their town and the world. Still, they're just rocks.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as movie quality, it's right up there with all of the classics.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a dumb concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we saw Halloween.
Halloween 2018. Just simply titled Halloween, like the first one was.
Halloween 1978? Nope. Halloween 2018.
And this was directed by David Gordon Green, written by John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, Jeff Fradley.
And, of course, the way the credits work on these things, I don't think John Carpenter or Deborah Hill had anything to do with this. They wrote the original. They created the characters. I think Jeff Fradley did the work here.
And this is a spin-off of what they did. Yep.
Yeah.
And it stars Jamie Lee Curtis. Yay! Judy Greer and Andy Malachek. Runtime is 1 hour and 46 minutes. There's a trailer on YouTube.
Spoiler-free, the movie seems to take place years after the first movie, as if none of the others happened. Not even the second one. Now, if you remember, the first movie, she runs into Michael Myers, and at the end, she gets injured and goes to the hospital. And the beginning of the second movie, basically the second movie takes place in that hospital.
Yeah, same night. Yeah.
Yeah, this one throws out the whole hospital thing. It was a strange choice here, but it's really very good. Once again, we're rooting for Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie, something we've missed in most of the other sequels and reboots. Jamie Lee Curtis was in the first one, and in the second one, and then in the H2O, and God, was there another one after that? I think there was.
Yeah, the one where she was killed off right at the beginning of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because she thought she didn't want to be in them anymore.
So this is her 5th movie, the overall, I think, 9th movie,
but
and
it's
really
the
second movie.
Again.
It's, like I said, this is complicated.
It is a little bit.
All right, well, what happens this time around?
Well, we get scenes from inside the mental asylum at Smith's Grove. There are journalists there to interview Michael Myers after 40 years of captivity. Dr. Sartain welcomes them and says the state has lost interest in studying Michael. They're going to move him away to another facility out of his care, a move that he doesn't approve of. He was once a student of Dr. Loomis. He can speak, he just chooses not to, the doctor says. Well, they have a courtyard with a very interesting way for the prisoners to spend time outside and get some fresh air. Should we tell them about that? Because
I don't think that's
so
even
weird.
remotely believable.
It's not.
It's a big paved parking lot with like
the courtyard
driven
basically.
in court, yeah. Posts driven to the ground like maybe 20, 30 feet apart in this grid pattern, and they're all chained to these posts.
So they've
like
got
volleyball tethers.
Yeah, so they've got this little leashed area where they can wander around their cement block,
and they're all out there at the same time seeing each other.
But they can't reach each other, and so they've got chains literally chaining them to the spot.
By the time you got everybody out there and chained up, they don't be getting sunburned.
It's
an interesting scene, but it's not real.
And an emergency, getting them all out of there quickly, it's not realistic, but just weird. Well, Aaron Corey, the reporter, asks Michael some questions, and then he opens a bag and pulls out Michael's infamous mask. The other prisoners start getting agitated. They all fear Michael. Michael just stands there, silent. And credits roll.
And you can see Michael from behind. He's got gray hair and a gray beard, and he's looking every bit of 60 years old. He's an old guy now.
Yeah.
Old Michael.
Well, back in Haddonfield, Aaron and his partner Dana drive up to a locked compound to see Laurie Strode. She doesn't want to be bothered, but $3,000 does open a lot of doors. She's protected like she's living in her own private prison. She still believes Michael is the boogeyman. Aaron says Laurie should just talk to Michael, and he might respond to her. Laurie knows they are going to be moving Michael, and she don't like it. Well, Laurie's granddaughter, Allison, talks about the 1978 incident with her friends. Her friend Dave says that 5 people getting killed with a knife just isn't that big of a deal in today's standards.
And that's kind of the big giveaway for this movie of what's going on.
Exactly. That was the body count, 5 stabbing victims in the first one.
Yeah, so the second movie never happened, and that's pretty much evidence.
Mm-hmm. Later in class, she sees Laurie standing outside, looking all Michael-like. Laurie gives her the money from the interview. Allison tells Laurie to say goodbye to Michael and finally get over it. Well, they're moving Michael tonight. Dr. Sartain and a bunch of other prisoners get on the bus as Laurie sits outside in her car and drinks.
It's almost as good as talking to him. You sit in the car and watch him get on the bus.
Yeah, holding a gun, clearly considering going after Michael right there. Afterward, she goes to dinner with the whole family and has a breakdown. Laurie's daughter tells her how much fun it was being a crazy woman's daughter. Well, something happens with the prison bus. There are prisoners all over the street. A boy and his father find the bus, and the boy accidentally shoots Dr. Sartain before Michael kills the father and the kid and steals their car. Officer Hawkins responds to the call. It's October 31st. Happy Halloween! Hawkins recognizes Michael Myers' name from the list of passengers on the bus. He's the only one still on the loose. Aaron and Dana stop at a gas station. She goes to the restroom, and Michael goes in as well. And it ends poorly for both of them. And he gets his mask back from Aaron, which must be like really old and stiff and brittle and
really good.
Smell like an armpit, but whatever. Lori hears the news and goes into lockdown mode at her compound. She warns her daughter, but the family isn't interested in hearing more of what they think is Lori's paranoid BS. So, Michael, now intact with his mask and jumpsuit, walks into a house, kills a woman, takes her knife. Now he is complete.
He has his mask. He has his jumpsuit. He has his knife.
He has
is
his
ready to proceed.
He has his sigils. It's kind of like, it made me think of, or Sandman recently made me think of it.
He needs his tools.
He's got his 3 things that he needs. That's what Michael did. He kind of went on a quest for his mask and his jumpsuit and his knife, just like Sandman did with his 3 things. So he, where were we? Oh yeah, Allison's friend Vicky is babysitting a kid tonight, but she still manages to get her boyfriend Dave into the house. The little boy says there was someone in his room, but Vicky doesn't believe him. Spoiler, he was right.
There's always babysitters misbehaving in these movies.
Yep, and Michael doesn't like that. Well, Vicky dies, Dave runs away and also dies. Officer Hawkins gets a call. Lori hears the police radio. Lori shoots Michael. Dr. Sartain arrives and explains the situation to the police. Lori recounts that every night she prayed that Michael would escape so she could kill him. Allison watches Michael kill her friend Oscar, and she knows who that is.
Nobody really believed that Michael was as bad as Lori said.
Uh-huh.
But now they're watching it in person.
Oh, yeah. Lori, her daughter Karen, and her husband go to Lori's hidden safe room in the house until this is over.
And if they'd have been smart, that would be the end of the movie.
Yeah, just stay there. But no. Well, she wants to hunt him, yeah. Hawkins, Sartain, and Allison are searching the neighborhood for Michael. They run down Michael, and Sartain stabs Hawkins. What?
Well.
Yeah. Turns out the doctor's a little whacked. Very whacked. And now we see why the prison bus crashed. Sartain puts Michael in the back of the police car with Allison. And he wants to see what's keeping Michael alive. He wants Michael and Lori to meet and see what happens. But Sartain doesn't live long after that.
Well, Michael doesn't like partners.
Yeah, he's a solo kind of guy. Well, Lori grabs her shotgun as Michael kills her son-in-law, Ray. Michael reaches through the door and almost strangles Lori, but she manages to shoot half his hand off. And she goes into the basement safe room, and he breaks in the door of the house, the compound. And after things go silent upstairs, Lori comes up and goes room to room hunting for her brother. She finds him, and the two actually have a little smackdown, hand-to-hand combat. I thought that was pretty cool. It's pretty one-sided, but cool.
Yeah. She lasts longer than you'd think.
Yeah, well, she's been training and practicing. She knows all the martial arts.
She's no Sarah Connor.
No. Well, Allison comes in, and she's not quiet about it. Well, Karen calls her into the safe room, but Michael hears. And it's hidden.
Hey, come down here to the safe room.
It was very cool because the kitchen island moves aside, and that's the secret hidden entrance to the basement, which Michael doesn't know about.
But they could see up through the floorboard, so it's not real secure.
Not well, but invisible. Well, this gives it away that Michael now knows where the entrance room, and he starts bashing on the island until he breaks it open. Well, Karen picks up a shotgun, waits for the entrance to open. Karen shoots him, and then Lori whacks him with a frying pan. Allison stabs him multiple times. It's teamwork. Well, and soon he's in the safe room, and they're upstairs. Then they spring the trap. Metal bars close off the opening, keeping Michael in the basement as Lori floods the place with gas from a system she has set up and incinerates Michael like it was a big crematorium.
This took some planning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's been ready for this. And then the whole house self-destructs as the 3 women make their way out to safety. Finally, Michael is dead. Won't be any more Halloween movies ever.
Except...
Wait.
There's 2 more in the pipeline.
There's Halloween Kills. How did they do that? We haven't seen Halloween Kills yet, but we will. Actually,
there's one more before Halloween. Oh, yeah, Halloween Kills and then Halloween Ends.
And then Halloween Ends, yeah.
Halloween
Kills is one right now. And I saw a spoiler on how Michael comes out of it.
Well, we'll get to that.
So we'll get
to that in a couple of weeks.
We'll see that, yeah.
Okay, a couple of good quotes. They were feeding me guacamole in sexy ways. What?
Yeah.
Oh, you're the new Loomis. Which, of course, we said the first time he came on screen.
Yeah, he's the new Loomis.
It's got some good lines here. All right, so we figured out that this play takes place 40 years after the original Halloween, skipping part 2 and the many sequels and reboots. At one time, we're told Michael killed 5 people. Actually, the body count for 1978 was 6 people, but Judith Myers wasn't killed in the main part of the story. So that happened decades before.
Right.
So they probably didn't count her.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure why they chose to ignore Halloween 2, which was a really good movie.
Yeah, I thought it would
It
have
would
made
have
more
made
sense.
perfect sense. Yeah.
Perfect sense to make it happen after, include Halloween 2.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why they skipped it. Maybe there's some legal rights or something.
Yeah.
But this is still pretty good. It takes the original film and continues in a very realistic way 40 years later. And I thought everything was well done until the psychiatrist went off the rails and turned evil. It was one twist too many.
That was really unexpected, though. I did not
Which
see
is
that
why they
coming
did
at
it.
all.
Yeah, it's a twist.
Yeah,
okay,
it was,
it's dumb, but it's a twist. And why does Laurie have a house full of naked mannequins?
I think those were just spares for her target practice. They showed her she was really good at shooting, and she had a target range set up of mannequins and things, mannequins and targets. I think they were just extras.
And it makes creepy scenes,
And
too.
it made a good creepy scene. Yeah.
All right, well, that is our show for this week. Tune in next week when we're going to have 4 more movies and a short film. And don't forget, send us an email at horrorguys.com to get the first 5 people will get free copies of Orphan First Kill.
Orphan First Kill.
Yeah, just send an email, say, hey, I want an Orphan First Kill. And if you're one of the first 5 people, you'll get one. And that's it. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.